Tony D and Little Joan, and this is a screenwriter's rant that's mostly about Supergirl. Mostly about Supergirl, but it's also about the social experiment that is Hollywood. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Thanks for checking out the Pineys books 1 through 18, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. So let's go through the Supergirl trailer, as we always do. It starts off with Crypto peeing on a newspaper that has Superman on it, and that already cheesed off a lot of fans. Supergirl waking up hungover someplace, no idea where, and then she takes off to a foreign planet on a foreign alien bus to go get drunk for reasons that we don't know yet. Why don't we know? I don't know. Now, I've put it together, I think, based on what I know of the character and based on this trailer, but that's kind of important information that really should be up front. But she goes to an alien bar to get drunk, where she meets, I don't know who this person is, some young girl who's going to be her sidekick through the movie and has a sword, and she's the one who says, "Oh, what's your deal? Why are you so sad?" And then it goes back to Krypton and how Kara was in Krypton, and then Krypton was destroyed, and she's one of the survivors. And then somehow she's caught up in some business with this girl who she, I think, is protecting, and everybody tries to kill her, including Lobo, who shows up for about 4 seconds or less in the trailer. And then there's some other guys who are trying to kill her too. And she's on a planet with, I guess, a red sun, so she can get drunk. That's sort of the conceit. And the big payoff is, Superman's all about justice, or thinks everybody's good, but she knows the truth. In other words, that not everybody's good. So that's the sort of balance that James Gunn is pitching. This is June 26th. Comes out, but we're hearing about it now. Now, what's my beef with this trailer? Well, let's break down the 3 acts. The first act, she's a drunken mess, drinking in an alien bar. It kind of hates herself, has survivor syndrome, I guess, for surviving Krypton. And then she takes on this girl to save her and redeem herself. And Lobo chases her and a bunch of other stuff happens. In the end, she saves her and saves the day and realizes life isn't all that bad, and maybe she ought to cut back on her drinking. But she really won't, because this is a franchise character, and we can't have too much character development because there's got to be another movie, and she's got to be basically the same. Now, here's the problems with the movies as I see it. Again, Supergirl was never that popular. I mean, face the facts, fanboys. They launched Supergirl way back in the day. I forget what year. Why did they even launch the character? Well, Superman was very popular at the time, and they wanted to capitalize upon that popularity and draw some of the girls in to read the comics. See, because, again, comic books, superhero comic books, say it with me, Hollywood. I'll say it slowly. I'll say it deliberately, so maybe it finally penetrates the thick skulls in Southern California. Superhero comic books are for boys. Okay? You got it? Did you hear that? Did you hear the words coming out of my mouth? Thank you. Yeah, it was for boys. That's why boys read Superman. They imagined themselves as Superman. So the comic book companies wanted to draw in the female audience at that time. And so they created, or had the guys create, Supergirl. And it was a failure. Why? Because girls generally don't like superhero comics. Let me say that again, because I know you're very confused at this point. You've heard the words and it's just processing, but it's not really getting through. Girls don't like superhero comics. They never have. They never had. And in fact, probably just prior to the creation of Supergirl, or right around that time, they did have romance comics. And they were pretty popular with girls. I know, shocking, right? That girls would be into romance comics and that guys would want to see people flying around punching people. Crazy. I know. But stick with me. That's the way it's been forever. But Hollywood says, hold my beer. I'm going to do some social engineering. So what we have here is the sort of movie that if you had put a male protagonist in, running around drinking whiskey, punching people in the face, saving a girl, oh, that would be a pretty realistic movie that a lot of guys would see. But when you have, what's her name? Allie Milcock, I think, something like that, who's pretty cute. When you have her do it, it doesn't really work. She's not doing it like a girl would do it. A girl, like a girl was pissed off and drunk all the time. First off, since even women from outer space, even aliens on faraway stars near black holes in the corner of the universe know that women don't pay for drinks. So that would have been one way to make this character work a little bit more. Like she's at the bar making dudes buy her drinks. You know, smiling at them, getting a drink, free drink here and there, and then saying, screw you, I'm Supergirl, I don't need you. I'm not going home with you. I'm not going home with anybody. I just wanted to get drunk. No, but they have her drinking alone. Because we all know women who go out by themselves and drink alone. Oh, yeah, it's a real epidemic. Yeah, that's not a female character. That's a male character. By the way, the Blondie song, Call Me, blasts through this whole trailer, which is a great song. By the way, I love that song. Love it. And, you know, it's kind of funny because the name of the band is Blondie, whatever, but why? Like, the first time James Gunn did this in Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's essentially what this is, another version of Guardians of the Galaxy, it was fun because Star-Lord had been kidnapped when he was a kid, and he had old music because that was, you know, he got kidnapped with a Walkman, and that's all he had, so he kept the Walkman going all that time. That all made sense. And he hadn't been back to Earth since. Now you're just pulling nostalgic songs out of your a girl who's 23 years old in the modern era. Yeah, she's not going to listen to Blondie. I mean, she might. Don't get me wrong. It's an awesome song. But there's plenty other terrible pop music. That's not terrible, but the other pop music's terrible to me because I'm 59. That girls love to listen to. 23-year-old girls generally don't listen to Blondie, generally speaking. So already you've got a character that flies in the face of, you know, the female audience you're supposedly cultivating here. Because a 23-year-old girl who would never be caught dead in the movie theaters watching this, but if she somehow, I don't know, stumbled in with her friends and, I don't know, was there to see a different movie and then ended up seeing Supergirl for some reason. Maybe she gets dragged in on a date. I don't know. She's going to watch that and go, yeah, She's not really a girl. She is a male character written by a man that's trying to appeal to, I guess, other men. Like, James Gunn seems to just keep writing Guardians of the Galaxy and different versions of it. Why does he do that? My guess would be he's a corporate guy. And he's delivering corporate movies. And if you're in the world of corporate, you're not a creative. So you don't care that you do anything different. What you care is this thing going to sell? So when the guy who made Guardians of the Galaxy, which made, did it make $1 billion? I think it made $1 billion. Comes in and he pitches you. Let's say he pitches you a bunch of different ideas. And then one of the ideas sounds like Guardians of the Galaxy. You're probably going to go, oh, yeah, wait a minute, that one. That's the one you should do. You did that with Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Yeah. Do that again. That made money. People like that. Yeah, that's not the way movies work. Creative stuff has to be different. Has to move out of its old paradigm. Now you got the dog. That's a little different. It's not a team yet. That's slightly a different dynamic. But Allie is young. I don't think she has the charisma to lead a movie like this all by herself. She's hot. Maybe if you had put her in a really skimpy outfit instead of putting an overcoat over her. I don't know why she's wearing an overcoat, by the way. Do superheroes get chilly? She's indestructible and bulletproof when she's not under a red sun. Why does she need that jacket exactly? She flies through space? Oh yeah, space is cold. It's a bit nipply. I'm gonna put on my overcoat. No, it's there because it looks cool. He's trying to give it a different look. And like, on paper, as a guy who's read superhero comics for many years, this would have been great if all the other superheroes had been presented in their normal fashion. Like if Supergirl was the only superhero that was like this, you could kind of be like, oh, that's kind of a cool, different take. No. See, they're all being deconstructed because that's what happened in the sort of late stage of comic books. It was all the superheroes were deconstructed. The Boys being the ultimate sort of example of that, where all the superheroes are just completely deconstructed into nothing. They're all hateful idiots. But the social engineering is the part that really sort of cheeses me off, because if you set aside Supergirl, which again, in my view, is a failed character that was ended, the comic was basically ended, and then the character was killed off in 85, and then they brought her back at least 2 other times before this version, which I think is the Tom King version. Tom King doesn't actually, in my view, doesn't have much of a reputation amongst comics fans. The ones I've talked to kind of hate him. Like, viscerally hate the guy. But he just keeps getting work. I mean, don't ask me why. We live at a time where it seems that the people who run comic books go out of their way to piss off all their fans. Endlessly. Like, it's so bad. There was a time in which people would love and defend comics with their dying breath. The fans were unbelievable in that respect. They loved it. And now, they're just gone, man. They have just given up. Because they have been pushed down and humiliated and wokeified so many times. The fans are like, I'm out. I'm just going back to the old stuff. And that's what they do mostly on Facebook. They buy and sell the old comics, and good luck selling the new ones. Most people don't even read them now. They just buy them for the covers and imagine there's a good story in there. Um, so doing this character at all is not a good thing. Maybe if you had included her as a side character in a Superman TV series or in the Superman movies, yeah, that could have been fun because then you could have had her as she was. Superman's cousin, just as nice and sweet as Superman, only it's girl. And you can put her in that hot outfit. Really, the only version of Supergirl that I think gained any traction was the Paul Dini version, the animated version. They had to team up with Batgirl, and that was kind of cute and fun. But it was sort of like a one off. Like it wasn't meant to be its own thing. It wouldn't sustain a movie, it wouldn't sustain a series. I think they pitched it. But again, there's just not enough girls interested in that. But once in a while, in the superhero show, yeah, throw it in there. Because the guys will tolerate one time and, mixing up the dynamic a little bit. And for the few girls that do watch the show, it's a bit of a treat. They can say, oh, wow, there's the girl characters. I'm glad to see them. I wish they had their own show. But there's not enough of us to justify that. So kind of got to take what you can get. But Hollywood is determined to convince you that skinny little blonde chick here is a tough. She's tough. She's tougher than Superman. She knows the truth. She's going to fight Lobo. Oh, yeah, we don't want Superman to fight Lobo. He's kind of a wimp. She calls him a bee in the previous movie, you might remember. No. Women are tough. Men? Well, what are men good for? Well, Hollywood tells you something like this. This is Solo Mio, a completely different movie. And you might say, why are you talking about a completely different movie? Because this is part of the social engineering in Hollywood. This is Kevin James in a movie called Solo Mio. It's a romantic comedy. Now, Kevin James is a comedian. He's pretty fat. And no offense to Kevin James, he's not exactly a handsome man. This is Paul Blart we're talking about. He used to do comedy movies. But Hollywood thought, oh, it'd be great to cast him as a lead in a romantic comedy about a guy who gets stood up at the altar and then has to go on his honeymoon alone. And then he meets, what's the name? Can't think of his first name, but his last name's Coates. He was in Sons of Anarchy. And he meets him, and he becomes his friend, and he's going to help him get a girl, and then he's got another friend he hangs out with. He just meets these guys. And so what we get is a movie about Kevin James getting another relationship and his friends sitting around talking about their feelings about their relationships. That, Hollywood, is a chick flick. And again, no offense to Kevin James. I like Kevin James, but in a chick flick, most women want to see handsome man do this. But you know who would be great in this movie if you swap the genders? Is it Mycock or Milcock or whatever her name is? Supergirl. Like Supergirl in this role, right? Instead of the man getting stood up at the altar, Allie gets stood up at the altar. She's a cute young woman in Italy all by herself that women want to identify with, and then she meets a new handsome man, an Italian man, and has a romance. That's a movie. That would be a normal girl movie. Kevin James, if you want to cast someone as a drunken superhero who's picking up the pieces of his life, well, Kevin James would be your guy because it would be pretty funny. And you could see him sitting around drinking, not being a very good superhero, saving a girl, and punching dudes so hard they go through a wall. So this is the problem with Hollywood. There's social engineering, gender the opposite way. Because they can't help themselves. Now, part of it is not a conscious decision to mess with your brain and social engineering near you. Some of it's actually this drive to do something different yet the same. And what I mean by that is they take creatives and they sort of trap them. So with James Gunn, he knew he had to come up with a pitch for Supergirl. And he also knew what the comic was like. And he's kind of trapped. Like, if he ignores the comic, well, then you got the comic fans mad at you, at least the handful that read Tom King. And, I mean, you might have gotten the older guys like me had you followed the original character's creation. But you probably wouldn't have gotten really any traction whatsoever. Because, again, the character's just not great. However, if you created an original character, you know, Lou, Superman's other cousin Lou, who has also survived Krypton somehow, but he's kind of fat and dopey and stupid and drunk. Yeah, I'd be willing to accept Kevin James as Superman's cousin, superpowered cousin Lou, because number one, at least it would be a new character, right? It'd be totally new. But then Warner Brothers wouldn't own the IP, so they'd probably have to pay the creators a little bit more money. And then the corporate guys would be sitting around going, why did we pay extra money? We got this perfectly good IP. And we've got Allie Milcock, or whatever her name is. So this is a sort of trap we find ourselves in. But Hollywood should be Hollywood. Old Hollywood. Kevin James probably should not be in a rom-com. Not a rom-com in which men sit around and talk about their feelings. He should be punching dudes in the face. Or at least being funny like Paul Blart again. Allie, she should be hot. She's 20 some years old. She should be in a very skimpy outfit. Now, Supergirl does have a very skimpy outfit, but she's not meant to be a super sexy character, but she could be. She could be. But will Hollywood, which complains constantly about the lack of women roles and the way women are treated and women, put her in a sexy outfit so guys will go see this movie? Oh, no. Gonna put her in an overcoat and a bunch of clothes. So, yeah, the boots. that again, it's the whole character screams male. Kevin James' character screams female, and this character screams male. So that's the state of Hollywood. Switching things around. Will I go see this? No, because number one, I have HBO Max. I'll just wait till it shows up on HBO Max for free. And I predict that, let's see, it comes out June 26th. Maybe by July 4th weekend. I'm in no hurry. Because there's going to be trailer after trailer dropping with Supergirl and people analyzing it and talking about Lobo. There's going to be a Lobo trailer. Make no mistake. And really, James Gunn having Crypto pee on Superman, I think that's a subtle, not so subtle message. That he really doesn't like Superman. I think he likes this character. You know, there's a lot of guys, especially over at Fandom Pulse, talking about, well, this is degenerate. This is, not the character. They're right. It's not. It could have been a fun character, but they're not looking at this from a creative standpoint. From a creative standpoint, you have to look at the character and look at Hollywood, look at the audience and what people want, need at this time. I think James Gunn missed the mark with Superman, not by a wide margin, but enough that he could have come back from Superman. And maybe he could have come back with this character. I doubt it, because again, the character's kind of a failure. At best, if he had been true to the original concept of the character, he'd just be making a female Superman movie, which didn't do so well when they tried to do that. this is at least fun and funny, but the problem is, I think people are so resentful of Hollywood, James Gunn in particular, and the fans that kind of don't like Tom King and this version of Supergirl. You've kind of stacked the deck against you. Like, back in the 80s when I was reading superheroes, something like this would have blown my mind, would have blown the back of my head off. I would have been like, whoa, this is cool, Supergirl getting drunk. But that was back at a time when superheroes didn't do that. Oh my God, they never would have done that. They still had the Comics Code Authority. Superheroes were still pretty much very staid. Now, it was good that they opened that up, but now they've gone too far in the other direction. And they can't see the forest for the trees. These comics, in my view, aren't selling. No one's talking about them. There's not a real fan base anymore. There used to be, but now it's mostly gone. And Hollywood is building their movies on this foundation of sand, and then they wonder why it sinks into the ocean. It's because nobody wants this. You think by looking at the comic sales that people want this? The comic sales aren't even real. The comic sales are just guys who run comic book stores going, gee, I wonder how many of these Supergirl comics I can sell. Well, I sell 8 Superman comics every month. I'll order 5. And that's how they figure it out. Do they sell any of them? Well, that initial order, maybe they sell 3. And then they go, oh, I only sold 3. Well, that's okay. I've got 2 for, 2 number 1s for the shelf, but I'm going to cut it back to say 4. I only have 1 for the shelf. And then issue 3, I'm going to cut it back to 3. And by that time, somebody drops it. That's the way comics work. So you get this initial spike with number 1, and then it goes down every single time. Everybody cuts their orders in number 2. And you're not getting the real numbers. There are guys who ordered, I'm sure, 20 copies of Supergirl, and they only sold 2. But you, Hollywood, think, oh, they sold 20. It must be pretty popular. No, they really only sold 2, because the numbers in comics aren't based on readership. It's based on the sales to comic book stores. So there have been comics who, comic books that were way under ordered, but then became popular later, or comics that were way over ordered. The Superman wedding is a perfect example of that. I've talked about this before. I knew a guy who ordered 10,000 copies, an entire skid of the Superman wedding issue. And I asked him how many he had, the week after it came out still, since he bought it. And his answer was about 9,990. I mean, that was a bad purchase on his part. I don't know if he was able to return any of those. I don't think so, because comic books aren't returnable. So, between that and Hollywood looking at places like social media, Twitter it used to be, but now X, for their sensibilities, they're lost, man. This isn't popular. This just isn't popular. What's popular? Well, you'd have to talk to young people. I try to do that as much as I can, but it's really difficult to tell on social media now. I can't give you answers to that. I can tell you a few pop stars, like Taylor Swift and Charlie XCX. But beyond that, what's popular? Good luck. And that changes every week. And with the internet, something goes viral, the whole zeitgeist changes and shifts. So you can't rely on that. You set out to make a popular movie just based on pure popularity, you're probably going to fail. Now, if you can make this movie at least good, like it has a great beginning, middle, and end, then you're on your way. At least it won't be an embarrassing display. But again, the problem is the parameters they put in. probably have to use the Tom King comic version. You got to work in Lobo. They probably want James Gunn to work in Guardians of the Galaxy type angle, because that worked before. So now you're trapped in with these three elements that you have to put in a movie. And you got to build the story around it. And you kind of can't deviate from that. And then on top of that, look at the girl she's sidekicking with. Some girl with a sword. I don't know who that character is. No idea who that girl is. Who's this? Is that Gary Oldman? What's his face? Is that Tim Roth? Looks like him. Let's see if we can get any answers over at the IMDb. I'm guessing no. Yeah, Millie Alcock. I can never remember her name. Allie Milcock, I called her. Let's see. Oh, so we got David Krumholtz as Zor-El is in it. Brute is in it. I believe he's from the comic. Got Jason Momoa as Lobo. And Eve Ridley as Ruthie Mary Knoll? Who's that? I don't know who that is. I guess she's the sidekick. And this movie isn't even coming out until June. So you're blasting us with this Supergirl thing now. Like it's going to be, oh man, it's going to be a summer blockbuster. How? Who's going to see this? The guys wanted Superman to do this stuff. If you had Superman drinking and punching dudes, I mean, they don't want him drinking, but they definitely want him punching dudes. They definitely want him picking up an axe and swinging it around. Superman got his butt handed to him. They definitely don't want Superman peed on. They want Superman to land and guys are shooting at him at every possible direction. And then he blasts through. That's what we want for Superman. Supergirl? I don't even know what you do here. Why is she even here? Why is she on this planet? I mean, what is this? The hero story with two girls? Who's that for? Again, this will be all guys in the theater. There won't be that many, but it'll be all guys. And a handful of families. They'll take the little girl to go see Supergirl, I guess. The handful of girls who still want to see this stuff. But after that, this isn't for couples. This isn't for families with boys in them. ask your kid, you know, your 10-year-old son, hey, Tommy, you want to go see Supergirl? No. That's the answer you're going to get. Older guys maybe will go see this. You know, older guys who collected comics. Not me. I'm not going to go see it. I'm going to wait until HBO Max. But some of these guys are still hot to go see it, mostly so they can complain about it on YouTube. What's the audience, man? All right. I think I'm done ranting. I'm also really, really fed up with Hollywood's ridiculous social experimenting. I'm just sick of it, man. It's just boring. Okay? Like, it was interesting 50 years ago when you moved a female character into a male role and it was a little different. And you know what would happen in the movie is everybody in the movie, all the other characters in the movie would go, oh my God, it's a female gunslinger, or it's a female this. That's different. They would acknowledge that. When Michael Keaton was Mr. Mom, it was like weird and fun and funny. Now it's just like every movie. We want regular movies now. That would be different. Make it a trend, Hollywood. Make it a trend so you could fix yourself and make money again. Stop listening to Chinese communists, which is part of the problem, I believe. All All right, I'm done ranting. That's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan. Movies? What the F, man? What the F, James Gunn? What the F? All right, thank you. I'll see you Friday at the Hamilton Elks Lodge from 5 to 9. I'll be doing a market. Saturday, I'll be at the Pensgrove event, Creepmas. That should be fun, from 10 to 4. And Sunday, I'll be at Philadelphia, the new horror bookstore in Manayunk at 2 p.m. for my probably my final talk of the year, How to Hunt the Jersey Devil. And then next weekend after that, 20th and 21st, I'll be at the Hamilton Mall. And I think I may have found a way to post book 19. And I'm going to go work on that now. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.